In an era where regulatory environments shift faster than most organizations can adapt, the leaders who endure are rarely the most aggressive or the most opportunistic. They are the most disciplined. Gavin Southwell has built his career on exactly that premise, and the results across more than 17 years spanning technology, insurance, and capital markets make a compelling case that governance-first leadership is not a constraint on growth. It is the engine of it. Southwell is the former chief executive and president of the #1 fastest-growing public company in America, as ranked by Fortune magazine from 2017 to 2019, outperforming companies including Amazon and Facebook in that period. He has worked on some of the largest insurtech exits on record, led cross-border operations spanning most of Latin America, and built what became the largest privately owned insurance broker in the world. He now advises and invests in technology-focused growth businesses, with a particular focus on markets where structural inefficiencies can be addressed through technology and artificial intelligence. His operating philosophy is straightforward. "I've always been very data-driven," Southwell says. "Facts matter. Data is important." In practice, that philosophy has produced governance structures, compliance cultures, and operational frameworks that have held up under the most demanding regulatory scrutiny across multiple jurisdictions and market cycles. The most common mistake organizations make with governance is treating it as a defensive measure. Southwell has never operated that way. In his view, governance is architecture. The quality of a governance framework determines the quality of everything built on top of it. A board-level accountability structure that functions in name only eventually exposes itself. Usually under pressure, and usually at significant cost. His experience at Beazley is instructive. Working in risk management at one of London's most respected firms, Southwell was part of the team that made Beazley the first Lloyd's insurance company to be rated strong for risk management. The achievement was not accidental. It was the product of clear decision-making frameworks, structured oversight, and a leadership culture that took accountability seriously at every level of the organization. The lesson he draws from that period, and has applied consistently since, is that governance earns trust in ways that marketing never can. Regulators, partners, and institutional investors do not extend long-term confidence based on claims. They extend it based on track records, and track records are built through the unglamorous, consistent work of doing things correctly before anyone is watching. "Andrew Beazley taught me to build on your strengths and not to focus so much on trying to solve weaknesses," Southwell says of the mentor who gave him his first significant leadership opportunity. Applied to governance, that principle means building oversight frameworks that reflect what an organization genuinely does well and holding leadership accountable to those standards, rather than constructing elaborate compliance architecture that does not connect to how the business actually operates. Growth without structure is fragile. Gavin Southwell has seen it, and has spent his career building the alternative. During his tenure as chief executive of the #1 fastest-growing public company in the United States, the organization served millions of Americans seeking health and life insurance coverage, many accessing it for the first time due to the prohibitive cost of healthcare. The company maintained the lowest complaints percentage in its industry throughout that period, a fact Southwell returns to consistently because it is the metric that captures what operational discipline actually means in practice. Not growth at any cost, but growth that holds its standards as it scales. That outcome required internal controls and performance monitoring capable of keeping a fast-moving, high-volume operation anchored to its compliance commitments even as expansion created constant pressure to do otherwise. It also required risk management frameworks that identified problems early enough to address them before they became operational failures. Earlier in his career, the same discipline produced results at a different scale. As chief operating officer of a privately owned insurance broker, Southwell helped grow the business into the largest privately owned insurance broker in the world within a few years. The firm won London Broker of the Year, Transaction of the Year following the acquisition of the largest wholesale broker in the United States, and Claims Team of the Year after its Chile office coordinated the payment of billions in claims following the earthquake there. "It was really hard work," Southwell says. "But we built a great global business." He was also part of the team that built the world's first buy and print insurance business, which was subsequently sold to the world's largest insurance company and replicated across personal lines markets globally. The operational clarity that made that model exportable was not incidental. That was the point. Structured processes reduce uncertainty. They make performance measurable, deviation detectable, and improvement systematic. In high-growth environments, that kind of operational clarity is not a brake on momentum. It is what makes momentum sustainable. Regulatory environments do not stay still. Oversight priorities shift, new requirements emerge, and organizations that have built their compliance posture around the rules as they existed yesterday find themselves perpetually behind. Southwell's approach has always been to anticipate rather than react. That orientation requires genuine competence in the regulatory landscapes where an organization operates, not surface-level familiarity but deep, working knowledge of how oversight bodies think, what they prioritize, and where pressure is building before it arrives formally. Southwell has operated across some of the most complex regulatory environments in global business. In each environment, the approach was the same. Build the compliance record proactively, ensure it is verifiable, and make transparency with regulators a standard operating practice rather than a crisis response. When the Chile earthquake struck, the claims operation was ready. The business paid out billions in claims efficiently and accurately, which is what best-in-class operational preparation looks like when it is tested under real conditions. In the United States, the company's compliance performance across state regulatory reviews became strong enough to be cited publicly by major media organizations and referenced at the White House level. That visibility was earned through years of consistent, documented, verifiable compliance work. You never know what will happen tomorrow, Southwell says, so may as well do it today. In regulatory terms, that means the work of building a defensible compliance position is ongoing, and it starts well before scrutiny arrives. Systems matter, but culture is what determines whether systems are actually used, honestly reported on, and continuously improved. Gavin Southwell has been deliberate about both. The company he led in the United States created thousands of jobs and invested significantly in training blue-collar workers to become licensed insurance agents. That training embedded compliance standards, ethical responsibility, and accountability into the professional identity of every person the company put in front of a customer. The result was an organization where compliance was not a department. It was a shared understanding of what the work required. Internal reporting mechanisms, continuous improvement processes, and community accountability were all part of how the business operated. Charitable giving and community service were built into staff development rather than treated as separate corporate social responsibility activity. The company was roughly 70% female and 75% from minority backgrounds, making it one of the most diverse technology businesses of its era. That diversity was not incidental to its compliance culture. It was part of what made the internal reporting environment honest and the risk identification more robust. When people ask what I do, I always reply that I work really hard, Southwell says. The same expectation ran through every level of the organization he built. Accountability is not something leaders demand from others while exempting themselves. It is something they model consistently, visibly, and without exception. The regulatory climate facing businesses today is more complex, more interconnected, and more consequential than at any previous point. Cross-border operations carry multi-jurisdictional compliance obligations. Technology innovation regularly outpaces the regulatory frameworks designed to govern it. Stakeholder expectations around transparency and ethical conduct have risen sharply and show no sign of retreating. In that environment, governance-first leadership is not a conservative choice, it is a strategic one. Organizations that invest in structured oversight, rigorous operational discipline, and genuine compliance culture are building something that their competitors cannot easily replicate: institutional trust, and the credibility that comes from a documented record of doing things correctly. Southwell's career demonstrates what that looks like across a sustained period and across multiple industries and jurisdictions. Make it count right now, do your best, and that to me is success, Southwell says. For institutional stakeholders, board members, regulators, and compliance professionals, that standard is worth understanding. Compliance is not the finish line. It is the foundation on which everything credible and durable gets built.